Welcome back, friends, to the Polished Podcast. We hope you're enjoying our insightful discussion with today's guest, Joanna Meyer. But now, let's add a splash of spontaneity and a sprinkle of fun to the show. It's time for Ask Me Anything. I love the different responses whenever I do that. Well, Joanna, here is how Ask Me Anything works. We are about to uncover the woman behind the profession, the quirks behind your expertise. And I've received 3 questions from one of our recent podcast guests that I've interviewed. And your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to answer these questions to give us a deeper insight to yourself. Are you game?
Yes.
All right. Well, today's questions were curated by Elaine Lynn Herring. She is the author of Unlearning Silence, How to Speak Your Mind, Unleash Talent, and Live More Fully. She is a speaker, an author, and a facilitator, and she is just a rock star human being. So I'm really excited to hear your response to her questions. So, question 1.
It's especially hard on teams when leadership teams aren't in sync with each other. What's your advice on navigating turf wars between leaders?
Oh, that is a big question.
Yes, she's a very deep well.
Yeah. Well, one thing I'd say about turf wars, I feel like I've seen it play out in good and bad ways in corporate life. And when it is happening in bad ways, you feel like not just individuals are competitive with each other, but entire divisions of the organization develop attitudes towards other teams and divisions. And it can get toxic really fast. And so I really appreciate the question. I have seen a couple of friends in leadership do it really well. And it comes from the top. It comes from forging those mutually beneficial relationships with your peer and enforcing it in the habits of your team. It's very easy for attitudes towards others to shift and continually kind of get bad. I even find that in my own work. If I'm not careful, I can build up an attitude towards another organization or something like that isn't generous. And when leaders do that and allow that to filter down into the culture of their teams, pretty soon the whole team has a chip on their shoulder towards your competitor or the other division in the company. And so I think it starts with your hard attitude, but it has to play out in the attitudes of what you allow, the type of language that you allow, and whether you choose to address it or not towards your competitors. You can't control your competitors' behavior, but you can choose the type of attitude you will have as a leader and within your group.
All right. I love that. Question 2.
How do you lead authentically when everyone else around you is different? For example, leading as a woman in a male-dominant environment.
I think you have to know I think you have to know the lay of the land in yourself so well. So you're going to go into that situation where it's mostly men at work and you're going to say, okay, is there a secret sauce that I can bring as a woman in this situation? There's certain feminine attributes that actually will be good for this team and situation. And I'm going to stick with those. I'm going to make sure those are present. That's what I'm going to choose to bring. And then you're going to look for any behavior that will be counterproductive. A friend of mine refers to that as a sticky floor, where often we think of women's advancement of having a glass ceiling. And then my friend Katie Cole describes it as a sticky floor. Women through their own choices can limit their growth because their feet are stuck. You can't blame it on other people if you're not willing to address it in yourself. And so I would do some hard thinking of just saying what are counterproductive behaviors for me to display as a woman in this situation? And I don't think that means fundamentally changing who you are. It's knowing what cards to play in that situation. And so it might be in my own journey of I can't solicit input from my team as much as I would like. I need to just shut up and make this decision myself because it's not helping me to continue in this behavior. So it's kind of knowing yourself and just really guarding against whatever behaviors are going to make you look not functional in that situation.
That's good. I love that. Well, we have made it to question 3, Joanna. And here it is, question 3.
What's the biggest leadership mistake you've made? And what did you learn from it?
I think, and this is a more generalized question, I can give you a specific example. but not being aware of habits or grooves I was allowing to develop in my life. I often think in terms of grooves. Like if we're not careful, you can have a certain mindset or a certain behavior or reactivity that comes out consistently in situations. And it becomes a groove. It's your way of responding and engaging. I was catching myself doing something this morning, and I'm glad I didn't respond to a coworker before I had caught it, because my response would have been unproductive and reinforcing a negative perception that I don't want to reinforce. And so I had to look at that and say, like, gosh, this groove of how I react in situations like this is deep. And I want to behave differently and lead differently. And so I'm going to change that. And so the biggest mistakes I've made have been allowing those grooves to get too deep and last for too long. And I think for like in leadership, this isn't everybody's leadership situation, but for me, there's been a season where I function more like a solopreneur, and other times where I'm like, oh no, my leadership is not just influence, it's happening through teams, and not shifting from a solopreneur to a team leader. Thankfully, I've caught that early enough in a couple situations, but I could look at that from a distance and being like, oh, that's going to be the most self-defeating groove if I get stuck in it.
That's wow. You are a self-aware leader for sure. I love it.
I'm stumbling forward, I think is how it's going. So
yeah, stumbling forward,
tripping in those grooves.
I think we all can experience that for sure. And I love that picture of grooves. That's a good mental image of that. Well, Joanna, I really appreciate you sharing with us and taking a chance on these questions. And here's the thing, friends, we want you to join the conversation too. Do you have a burning question or a curious musing? Maybe you have a wild wondering about our guests. Now is your chance to be part of the action. You can go to our website at polishnetwork.org and submit your questions there. Become a Polish Podcast MVP and get a mention plus insight into your favorite guests. Send those questions in today.